One day, my science team, Oliver and Jane, and I went on a mission to Kenya in Africa. The Maasai tribe was fighting an epidemic, and our job was to identify the virus and stop the spread of the disease. However, our flight was complicated by difficult weather conditions, high winds and impending heavy rain. Our airplane was struggling to stay airborne when smoke and then flames billowed from the engine. Our pilot attempted to land the airplane, but the severe storm made it impossible. As luck would have it, our plane crashed into tree branches, which absorbed some of the impact, and the downpour that began extinguished the engine fire. Despite the trauma, we all survived with only minor injuries. However, our equipment was destroyed in the crash. Once in the desert, our pilot tried to radio for help, but all attempts were futile. As night fell, we built a fire to keep warm, the silence broken only by the distant growling of wild animals and the eerie glint of hyenas' eyes in the darkness. We decided to spend the night inside the airplane, figuring it would be safer. When morning came, we stepped out of the plane, surveying the barren desert landscape. Our pilot tried to fix the radio, but all attempts were unsuccessful. We pondered what to do next: wait for help or go in search of it. With limited provisions and no rescuers, we would not last long, so we decided to set off after sunset to save water and avoid the scorching heat of the day. We gathered what little we had survived the plane crash and set off at dusk. Our pilot, armed with a map and compass, led us toward the nearest tribal village. We walked through the cold desert night, our feet sinking into the sand, a stark contrast to the scorching heat of the day. Around 3 in the morning, we stopped after spotting a pack of lions up ahead. Jack, our pilot, warned us that the wind was blowing toward the lions, that the lions had already smelled us and we should prepare for defense. He had a revolver, but he knew it wouldn't kill a lion, only provoke one. As we stood still under the moonlit sky, the lions raised their heads and stared at us. Jack held a revolver in a trembling hand, and the rest of us huddled together in fear. "Stay calm. Don't make any sudden movements," Jack whispered, his voice strained. He wasn't a hunter, and the revolver seemed foreign in his hands, creating a false sense of security. The lions began circling us, their eyes glowing ominously in the moonlight, their growls echoing across the barren landscape as we watched in horror. Suddenly, one lion pounced on Jack. He shot at him, but the lion didn't even feel the shot. He easily knocked him down with a single paw movement, then grabbed him with his jaws and dragged him to the rest of the pride, who pounced on him. Jack was beyond saving, and the only right thing to do was to run. We ran for a long time until we were exhausted and fell to the sand. We were terrified and desperate, in the middle of the desert, not knowing where to go. Our only guide, and he was eaten by the lions before our eyes. Gathering our strength, we walked a few more miles. An oasis appeared in the distance. We hurried there. Arriving at the place, we decided to camp and rest in order to continue our journey at night. Safety, we decided to take turns sleeping. I was awakened by a noise. When I opened my eyes, I saw a spear in my face. It was the local natives, and they were not friendly. They took us prisoner and led us to their village. None of us spoke their language, and they did not understand us. We were led to a village, a fence with human skulls around the huts, and we realized that cannibals lived here. As the villagers surrounded us, their eyes were full of anger and hunger. A sense of terror gripped our exhausted body. We were helpless, bound with ropes, with no weapons to defend ourselves. The atmosphere in the village was suffocating. There was an eerie silence, broken only by the distant howls of the wind. The village chief emerged from the hut, a tall and imposing figure adorned with skins and bones. His eyes glittered with a sinister gleam, and his voice echoed through the night, sending shivers down my spine. He spoke in a language unknown to us that reeked of darkness and ancient rituals. When we were brought into the small hut, the stench of decay was in the air and made our stomachs churn. We were thrown on the dirty floor, our bodies aching with fatigue and fear. The villagers stood guard outside, keeping their eyes on us, waiting for a chance to eat our flesh in. The evening the tam-tam sounded in the village. The natives lit a fire and performed a ritual dance, when suddenly 2 natives burst into our hut. They grabbed Oliver and dragged him to the fire. I tried to intervene, but received a blow in the temple, from which I lost consciousness. In the morning, I regained consciousness and found Jane sitting next to me in tears. I asked her what had happened and where Oliver was, but she was unable to speak due to shock and horror. We knew we had to take action, as staying put would result in us being eaten for dinner one by one. We had nothing to lose, so we decided to escape. I looked through the cracks. It was still early morning and there was no one in the courtyard. Behind the door, a native was sleeping with a spear lying next to them. I opened the door and grabbed the spear. The native immediately woke up and looked at me in bewilderment. I instinctively stuck the spear in their stomach. The native fell to the ground. I called Jane and together we ran away from this devilish village. We walked through the desert. The sun was scorching. Our feet were submerged in sand. We had no drink or food. We did not know where we were going. We hoped only for a miracle, but there was no miracle. We did not give up, and as long as we had strength, we went forwards. The endless expanses of the desert seemed to stretch endlessly, giving neither respite nor relief. Every step forward was a testament to our unwavering will to survive. Even in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds, the weight of despair hung in the air, but we pressed forwards, driven by the strength of our resolve.